Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, who lived in Anathoth, he began to prophesy in around 627 BC, about the 13th year of Josiah, who began his kingship at the age of 8. But he came along and he prophesied during that time. I have a question mark about when he passed from this life. We don't have that recorded. But around 577 BC, we're around that off just to be like he was in the ministry for 50 years. And he was at the point of seeing God's people go down, and he was continuing to prophesy until we hear from him no more. He even did that in Egypt, where he probably died. And because of his life, I ask you the question, have you ever just wanted to get away from your responsibilities, that task which is always upon you? That's something you have to get done. Have you ever just wanted just to get away? Now, we got Southwest Airlines. We can do that all the time, can't we? You want to get away? We got a flight for you. You just get away from your troubles. They make quite a lot of money on that. But did Jeremiah ever feel that way? This dedicated prophet of God, did he ever feel like, I've had enough and I want to get away? Turn with me to Jeremiah, the 9th chapter. And we'll notice that in verse 1, oh, that if I had a lodging place in the wilderness, I want to get out, the lure of the wilderness, if I could just get away. A lodging place of wayfaring men, that I might leave my people and go from them. Yes, he felt that. Dedicated, understand he's the mouthpiece of God, that things were that bad. They said, if I could just get out in the wilderness where a wayfaring man goes, just to leave my people. Oh, he had that desire. Oh, if I had the wings of a dove, David would write in the Psalms. God-fearing men and women feel that way because there's a burden. But I want to look at his life and realize that he had those feelings, but we just want to know, what did he do about them? Implied here is that he probably won't leave his people, and he never did. But oh, if I could just get away. It was that bad. So I want to investigate why he would say that, what he did about it, and what lessons we can learn from that as well. We read the rest of that verse, we'll find out why he said what he said, because here are the people. Here's the character of these people. And so, since this follows that verse, I think this is the one we need to examine. That I might leave my people and go from them. Why do you feel that way, Jeremiah? For they are all adulterers. And he says, an assembly of treacherous men. So what do you mean by adulterers? James speaks about you adulterers. The idea of you have other gods, you worship other gods. They were idolatrous people at this time, worshiping all the gods, Molech, bringing their sons to and daughters to walk through the fires of Molech. Manasseh had set forth, and indeed all these idols in the temple area. They were involved, engaged, giving lip service to God, but they were worshiping their idols, like you and I might be worshiping the almighty dollar. Like you and I are worshiping recreation. That's what drives you. All the stuff that we want to do. We can have our idols today, and therefore betray our relationship with God. And Jeremiah more than once dealt with the idea of being these people idolaters as being adulterers, adulteresses. But there was treacherous, meaning deceitful. Look at the line that he now talks about. When he said they're treacherous men, they bend their tongue, as it were, their bowl for falsehood. They are grown strong in the land, but not for truth. For they proceed from evil to evil, and they know not me, saith Jehovah. Take ye heed, every one his neighbor. Trust ye not in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will go about with slanders, and they will deceive everyone his neighbor and will not speak the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies. They weary themselves to commit iniquity. The habitation in the midst of deceit. Through deceit they refuse to know me, said Jehovah. Lying deceit. Do we not live in times like this? That we can see with our eyes what's happening, so you're not to believe your lying eyes? We're going to gaslight, this is the way it really is. Governments do that. We live in a time where people don't mind lying in order to get away from any trouble they have. They will be deceitful. They will be violent. They'll disregard for life. Just murder somebody on the streets because they're a CEO of a major company. We live in those times. Jeremiah did too. That you couldn't even trust your brother. He had good reason for that. And he is speaking the word of God to the point that this is the people that I've come to serve. If I could just get away. That's how bad it was. So we want to investigate just how it was. Because it's persecution, even from his own brethren. Talk about your brother. Here's Jeremiah felt this. In Jeremiah the 11th chapter in verse 18, and Jehovah gave me knowledge of it, and I knew it. And then thou showest me their doings. But I was like a gentle lamb that is led to the slaughter. I wasn't ready for this, God, but you revealed this to me. And I knew not that they had devised devices against me, saying, let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof. Let's just take care of this prophet with all the stuff he's saying. And let us cut him off from the land of the living, that his name may be no more remembered. But O Jehovah of hosts, who judgeth righteously, who triest the heart and the mind, I shall see thy vengeance on them, for unto thee have I revealed my cause. You let God have his vengeance. God, I'm just presenting it to you. I'm a sacrificial lamb, and I'm glad you let me be aware of this. Therefore, thus said Jehovah concerning the men of Anathoth, that's where he grew up. They seek thy life. They're not going to put him in jail. We're going to kill him. Cut him off from the land of the living. Thou shalt not prophesy in the name of Jehovah, that thou die not by our hand. Therefore, thus said Jehovah of hosts, behold, I will punish them. The young men shall die by the sword. God's going to come to his aid. Verse 23, there shall be no remnant among them, for I will bring evil upon the men of Anathoth, even the year of their visitation. So sometimes the visitation is God coming in judgment. And Peter speaks about the fact that we should be examples to others around us, that the day of visitation they will glorify God. When God comes in judgment, they will say, we're on the right side. These people didn't want to listen to Jeremiah. They refused to do that. So what do we see as we open up chapter 12? What we see is like Job. We see Jeremiah kind of doing battle with God. God, these are your people. Righteous art thou, O Jehovah, when I contend with thee. He's bringing his thoughts. I know they're out to kill me. But at the same time, I want you to know, God, as I contend with you, would I reason the cause with thee? Wherefore doth the way of the wicked prosper? Why? I want to talk to you, God, about this. How come they prosper? I'm led to the slaughter. And what are you doing about that? Wherefore are all they at ease that deal very treacherously, deceitfully? Thou hast planted them. Yea, they've taken root. They grow. Yea, they bring forth fruit. Thou art near their mouth, but far from their heart. But thou, Jehovah, knowest me. Thou seest me and triest my heart toward thee. Pull them out like sheep for the slaughter, and prepare them for the day of slaughter. How long shall the land mourn, and the herbs in the whole country wither? For the wickedness of them that dwell therein. The beasts are consumed. There are no more birds anymore flying, because they said, he shall not see our latter end. And I believe that God steps in now. If thou run with footmen, and they have wearied thee, then how canst thou contend with horses? See, in chapter 23 and verse 21, the prophets ran on foot to deliver their message. And Jeremiah speaks about them running on foot. And these were the prophets, but God never sent them. In chapter 23 and verse 21, I sent not these prophets, yet they ran. Jeremiah is dealing with these fellow prophets that are running. They're supposed to be the prophets of God. He said, if you wearied over the false prophets and all the deceitful lies, how are you going to deal when the armies of Nebuchadnezzar come? How are you going to deal with horses when they come? Through in a land of peace thou art secure. Yet what wilt thou do to the pride of Jordan? When things are peaceful, now what's going to happen when the Jordan is flowing? When all the battles are being fought? When Nebuchadnezzar is coming to do his will? For even thy brethren, the house of thy father, even they have dealt treacherously with thee. You can't trust your brother, your family. Even they have cried aloud after thee. Believe them not, though they speak fair words unto thee. See, they're liars. Beware, Jeremiah. And I guess the worst persecution you could ever go is from your own family wanting to put you to death. Wanting to put you to death. But that's not the only time they threatened his life, but we'll find also they ridiculed him. Jeremiah, the 20th chapter, verses 7 and 8, we read how they felt about, O Jehovah, thou hast persuaded me, and I was persuaded. Thou art stronger than I, and it just prevailed. I have become a laughing stock all the day. Everyone mocketh me. I'm preaching your truth. I've got to do that. But I've become a laughing stock all the day, and everyone is involved in mocking me. For as often as I speak, I cry violence and destruction, because the word of Jehovah has made a reproach unto me and derision all the day. That's brought derision upon me. Ridicule. Can you take ridicule? Jeremiah did. How do you feel about it? I'd like to get away sometime. But he had a work to do. He had work to accomplish. He was in prison. Jeremiah, the 37th chapter, verses 14 and 15. He was being accused of falling away on the side of the Chaldeans. Remember, Jeremiah's not going to leave his people. Then said Jeremiah, it is false. See, these people are all liars. He says, false. I'm not falling away to the Chaldeans. As he was in the area of Benjamin when they had reprieve because the Chaldeans said Egypt is coming to fight. And so they backed away. They've been besieging. They backed off for a while. But people thought, well, I guess Nebuchadnezzar's not coming. So he goes, and he's outside in the area where Benjamin, the tribe was. And he hearkened, but he hearkened not to him. So Uriah laid hold on Jeremiah and brought him to the princes. And the princes were wroth with Jeremiah. They smote him, they beat him, and put him in prison in the house of Jonathan, the scribe, for they had made that the prison. They smite him, put him in prison, accused him of falling away to the Chaldeans. This was the faithful Jeremiah. And that wasn't going to happen to him, but they put him in prison anyway. Then we pick up in verse 16. When Jeremiah was come to the dungeon house on the cells of Jeremiah, had remained there for many days. But here's Zedekiah. Remember, Zedekiah was the last king of Judah. And during this time, Zedekiah wants to know how he's faring. They respected Jeremiah because he brought the truth of God. But they didn't like it. So here's how they're handling him. So Zedekiah, king, sent and fetched him, and the king asked him secretly in his house, is there any word from Jehovah? And Jeremiah said, there is. Here's Jeremiah. Thou shalt be delivered in the hand of the king of Babylon. Moreover, Jeremiah said unto the king Zedekiah, wherein have I sinned against thee? He's speaking to them, where have I sinned against you? Why am I in the prison? But he keeps on speaking what the king needed to hear. Verse 21, and Zedekiah the king commanded that they committed Jeremiah into the court of the guard, and they gave him daily a loaf of bread out of the baker's street until all the bread in the city was spent. Thus Jeremiah remained in the court of the guard. What's happening? Nebuchadnezzar is besieging the city, cutting off all supplies. they're going to run out of bread. He said, let's give him that. And yet he said, why are you imprisoning me? Why has that happened to me? Later on, he's brought in chapter 28 in a dungeon of mire. No water there, just mud. And he seeks into the mud where water had been. Verse 6 says, they took Jeremiah and cast him in the dungeon of Malchiah, the king's son, Zedekiah's son, and was in the court of the guard. And they let down Jeremiah with cords, and in the dangerous, there was no water. In the dungeon, there was no water, but mire, and Jeremiah sank in the mire. Just sink in the mud, just cast him aside. And all he's doing is preaching the truth to the people they need to hear. Now, heroes come along in these times, and here was an Ethiopian, Ebed-Melech. He was a eunuch who was in the king's house, heard that they had put Jeremiah in the dungeon, and the king then sitting in the gate of Benjamin. Ebed-Melech went forth out of the king's house and spake to the king, saying, my lord the king, these men have done evil in all that they have done to Jeremiah the prophet, whom they have cast in the dungeon, and he's like to die in the place where he is because of the famine, being in the mud, the famine, all the circumstances. And he worked to get him out. He'll be remembered for that down the road. Verse 12, and said, Jeremiah put these rags and worn out garments under thy armholes under the cords, and Jeremiah did so. So they drew up Jeremiah with the cords and took him up out of the dungeon, and Jeremiah remained in the court of the guard. These are just examples of his life, what he went through. How did he feel about that? Look at Jeremiah, the 15th chapter, in verse 10. We just have an example I like to look at. Woe is me, my mother that has borne me, a man of strife and a man of contention. Because he wasn't like that. When Jeremiah is brought to be in the first chapter, chosen by God, he said, I'm just like a child. He wasn't Isaiah, here am I, send me. Jeremiah, I'm a child. It was not something that was part of his nature to be contentious. But he was speaking the teachings of God, and indeed he was involved in let it be known what they need to do. And so he says, I have not lent, neither have men lent to me, yet every one of them doth curse me. I've done nothing wrong. And he used an example of money. I wasn't practicing usury and lending money and I didn't lend and I didn't receive. What have I done? That's how he felt about it. He's been put into the prisons, left to die. They want to kill him. And this will remind you of somebody in the Old Testament. You get to this point, chapter 20, verse 14. Cursed be the day wherein I was born. Sound like Job. Oh, Job went through so much difficulties. Jeremiah did too. From his own family, own people in Ananoth. Cursed be the day when I was born. Let not the day wherein my mother bare me be blessed. This is how thorough he goes. Cursed be the man who brought tidings to my father, saying, a man-child is born unto thee, making him very glad. And let that man be as the cities which Jehovah overthrew and repented not. Let them hear a cry in the morning and shouting at noontime. Because he slew me not from the womb, so that my mother would have been my grave, and her womb always great. I did have to see this. I could have been found dead in my mother's womb. Wherefore came I forth out of the womb to see labor and sorrow, that my days should be consumed with shame. There's my life. That's the way he felt. No wonder he said, I wish I could get away. But he's going to be going through all this persecution with a deceitful and treacherous people. He didn't do that. He stayed with his people, even to the end, even into Egypt. And sometimes we forget a lot of things happened. When Nebuchadnezzar came through and he set forth a governor over the people, Jeremiah is still in Jerusalem. And Gedaliah is assassinated, and all the people fear what's going to happen now. And they're trying to flee and to go into Egypt. Some are being taken off into Babylonian captivity, but Jeremiah stays with his people as he sees the city go down, says being destroyed, and he's taken off to Egypt himself. In chapter 42, beginning with verse 20, for ye have dealt deceitfully against your own souls, for you sent me unto Jehovah our God, saying, pray for us unto Jehovah our God, according to all that Jehovah our God shall say, so declare unto us, and we will do it. Like, do we stay here because the governor's been assassinated, and now we're going to be eliminated, or do we go to Egypt for safety? Besiegement has taken place. People are taken off into captivity in various times and sections of people. So he said, you were deceitful back then when you wanted me to go pray. And I have this day declared it to you, but ye have not obeyed the voice of Jehovah your God in anything for which he has sent me unto you. Now therefore know certainly that you shall die by the sword, by the famine, by the pestilence, in the place whether you desire to go sojourn there, even including Egypt. So it came to pass when Jeremiah had made an end of speaking unto all the people of the words of Jehovah God, it said him even all these words, then spake the men in power. They were proud men. They didn't want to hear what he had to say. In verse 7, they came into the land of Egypt, for they obeyed not the voice of Jehovah. And they came unto Tahpanhes. And here is where Pharaoh's palace was. So I know he didn't want to go. He said stay, but he was taken by those people. Why would they take him? I always thought of, why take him? Just kill him now. They knew enough respect for him. He speaks the truth. We don't. But they might be helpful, and all he does is keep teaching. Chapter 43 and verse 9. There in Tahpanhes, he says, take great stones in thy hand, hide them in the mortar and the brickwork which is at the entry of Pharaoh's house in Tahpanhes, and in the sight of the men of Judah, and say unto them, thus saith Jehovah of hosts, of God of Israel, I will send and take Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. Notice he's my servant. God's in control. And he's going to set those are rocks, you hide them in mortar in front of his house, because God's going to bring Nebuchadnezzar, which is going to be King Nebuchadnezzar, and he's going to be ruling over Egypt. And the picture he gives is like a shepherd arrayed with Egypt, walking away in peace. You're not going to do anything about it, Egypt. Be walking away in peace. He shall array himself in the land of Egypt as a shepherd, in verse 12. Putteth on a garment, and he shall go forth from this in peace. And he's going to destroy the gods, the houses, burn them up. He'll destroy them like he did Jerusalem. And so there's the fact that he's in Egypt. And he's now still preaching to them, still telling them what the will of God is that they should follow. And he's still warning the people, as we see in verses 8 through 13. He never stopped presenting the will of God and warning, this is what's going to happen because of you making this move. But Jeremiah would love to get away, but he went through that as well. And these are some of the last sermons that he's involved in preaching, as we read in chapter 42 and 43. So up until the day we hear him speak no more, he's involved in warning the people. And the point is, did he get away? Oh, that I could. Oh, that I would, as a part of him. But why? He's got a task to do. He's been strengthened by God from the very beginning. This is where he knew that God was using him. In Jeremiah 1, 6 through 10, we'll see how God chose him. It says, Then I said, Ah, Lord Jehovah, behold, I know not how to speak, for I am a child, trying to get out of his task. Jehovah said to me, say not that, I'm a child, for to whosoever I shall send thee, thou shalt go. And whosoever I shall command thee, thou shalt speak. Be not afraid of them, because of them. I am with thee to deliver thee, saith Jehovah. Then Jehovah put forth his hand, touched my mouth, and Jehovah said to me, behold, I put my words in thy mouth. When we talk about prophets, I just have an idea that I was inspired by God, and I'll say it in my words. The very words that God wanted to be spoken and revealed. Touched his tongue, touched his mouth. I put my words in thy mouth. See, I have set thee this day over the nations, over the kingdoms, to pluck up. So we'll see plant imagery here, break down. We'll see wall imagery here. And to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. Build and plant. Pluck up, destroy. What a job. What a task. I'm sending you before the nations. And he's dealing with his people. And he's dealing with the people, rulers of other places. But he was made strong in the Lord in order to accomplish that. Verses 17 through 19. Therefore, gird up thy loins and arise and speak to them all that I command thee. And be not dismayed at them, lest I dismay thee before them. I will embarrass you in front of them. Now that's what he had to start his task. He trusted God. He knew God was faithful. But he was involved in realizing, this is my task. I'm not leaving them. But there's times when he said, oh, if I could just go to the wilderness and get away from these people. But he stayed with them, even in Egypt. For behold, I've made thee this day a fortified city. That's what God has made him. An iron pillar, brazen walls, against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, against the people of the land. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to deliver thee. He got delivered from prison. God used an Ethiopian man who had realized that Jeremiah was treated unlawfully, put cords around him and got him out of the mire. He was delivered. I don't know how he died, but I do know from even dealing with Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon coming in to destroy Jerusalem, even after that happened, he's over there with the people of Judah in Egypt, and they think they can still escape. They still can escape Nebuchadnezzar. And he's telling the same thing over and over again, warning them that destruction is coming. But Jeremiah was faithful to his task, and he was strong in the Lord. That's where you and I can be. And he contends with God, just like Job does, trying to figure out why they're prospering and I'm not. But at the end, God delivers. So we close with this thought. Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men. I would like to do that. I might leave my people and go from them. Why? Because they are adulterers. They don't serve God. And we can look at all the details. We didn't do it this morning. I just want to hit these points. I leave my people. They're also treacherous. And we saw how he met up with that treachery and deceitfulness. But he knew God was with him and he would deliver him. But it was still painful. I wish I were not born. I haven't done anything. I'm not a contentious man. But God had appointed him, separated him from the womb. He was going to be his prophet. And so we just ask, what lesson can we learn from that? And I'm just asking you a question. Will you be faithful? Will you be faithful through the sorrows in your life? Let me tell you to the extent. Even when you have no more tears to shed, there's no more water in your head. Look at chapter 9 and verse 1. Oh, that my head were waters, and mine eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. He cared about his people. Part of him wanted to get away, but he cared about the people. If they were the fountains and water that just I would have enough sorrow. I could weep that long. But we don't. What happens when you're disappointed? What happens when your word of teaching, your kids, your grandkids, your brethren, what happens when those things occur and you have no more tears to shed? Will you still be faithful when you have no more tears to cry because you've been so disappointed? Jeremiah did. Oh, if they just continued there, I would be crying for them. I cared that much about them. And he proved it. He never left them. He was telling them, go into Chaldean. That's a discipline. Go there and you'll be brought back. But he went with the people that were not going to be brought back, unless they escaped. Few did. You're not going to be a part of those people, and he would die there. We never hear him talking about the things. He was a 70-year-old man, about 70 years old, when he preached in Egypt. And we don't know what happened after that. And I want, as a Christian, regardless of what might happen, did you ever pray to God, God, use me in thy service? I do that as a preacher. But I know this is what this man went through in service. Do I want that? Will I be faithful to that? Will I be faithful when people don't care about what you're preaching? They don't want to hear it anymore? When they will try to destroy you? Will I be still doing my task? I hope so. Jeremiah did. And we saw the weeping prophet. No, he was a strong prophet. Gets maybe his character as being contentious. God made him strong like brazen walls. And he can make you and I strong. Yes, I want to be faithful. I'm not going to give up praying. I'm not going to give up warning. I'm not going to give up serving. Because that's what I am to be as a Christian. And sometimes we get tired of praying for people that haven't come back to the Lord. Sometimes we want to give up on them. Sometimes we just forget about them. We can't do it, especially our families, but our spiritual family. And don't water down the message. Speak the truth. Do it in kindness and love. He was always warning the people about what the route that they were going. And he kept serving him all the days of his life. He had a 40 to 50 year ministry that most people would say was a complete failure. It wasn't. Because this is one prophet that we see the battles he was fighting within and without, and said, no, you can be faithful unto the end. And just keep serving God, because God will deliver. You know how they deliver Paul? I'll be delivered into this next kingdom is going to be by death. And he would die for the cause. And we must realize that we have that certainty of heaven. We've got a short period of time. How will we live it? Will we promote ourselves, live an easy life, retire, and retire from serving as a Christian? Or we'll just keep serving God, keep praying, keep warning, keep following the teachings of God. Jeremiah is here to remind us, and he's worthy of our thoughts this morning. And I hope that you will be that type of a person that I will be as we serve God in faithfulness. This morning, if you're not a child of God, we want to encourage you to obey the gospel. That's the message we're delivering, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's the good news of salvation, that Christ died for our sins. He was raised for our justifications. Without Jesus being raised from the dead, we would not be justified from our sins. Took his death and resurrection. That was accomplished. He gave himself up, and he took it up again, because he's God. And we come to the Father through the Son, Jesus Christ. If you want to make that step or want to learn more about it, come let us know as we stand and as we sing.